From the advertising media capital of the world, New Milford, Connecticut, wherever that is. This is Mostly Automotive Marketing with Matt Wilson, a bi-weekly-ish podcast about all things automotive marketing. Now, here's your host, Matt Wilson.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Mostly Automotive Marketing with Matt Wilson. Like Jim McCarthy said, by the way, Jim McCarthy, voiceovers.com. Thank you for the intro. It is a bi-weekly-ish podcast all about automotive marketing, mostly. There's a lot of podcasts in the automotive space. I counted. There's like 35, and they're all awesome. And there's a link that has them all listed and categorized, the directory, and I can't find the link. I'll post it in the comments. But check out the link, and there's lots of great podcasts in our space. But this is the only one that is hosted by somebody who used to work in radio and went crazy and bought like a really nice microphone, right? That's the difference. But they're all great podcasts. But anyway, thank you for listening. I appreciate it. Now, no secret, right? No secret that last year was crazy. And a lot of companies, like the agency I work for, Silverback Advertising, pulled through, right? We didn't lose any people. We came out stronger on the other side. And I was thinking about, like, why is that? And I think the two reasons are the services we provide to our clients and our leadership, right? Last year, the importance of being a good leader and it was amplified. It's always important, but I feel like last year it was amplified. And so, as you know, we're partnered with the folks at Dealer Marketing Magazine, dealermarketing.com. And there is a fantastic piece that is coming out that's called 4 Lessons for Ramping Up Leadership in 2021. My screen just went out. Piece of junk. Oh, there we go. If you hit it, it makes it work better. That's a technical fact. The article is called 4 Lessons for Ramping Up Leadership in 2021. And it's written by Laurie Halter, who's the owner at Charisma and host of the Carearing podcast and contributor to Dealer Marketing Magazine. And she joins me now on the podcast. Hi, Laurie. How are you?
I love in the intro that you talk about your awesome microphone and then your monitor went out.
Yeah,
so we've got a great microphone, but a lame monitor.
We've got all the technology here in the world, but right. my Hisense monitor that's 10 years old does not work. Thank you for coming on the podcast.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. I was thinking about something the other day, and because I'm on social media a lot. There's a lot of our industry is very active in social media, and there's somebody I follow who likes to talk about how they are like a general manager. They're the boss. They're in charge of the dealership.
Yeah.
And I was thinking there's a difference between being a boss and being a leader, right?
Huge. And I don't know if a lot of people actually make that distinction. Have you seen a lot of people understand the difference there?
I think no, because I think when you're in charge or you're put in charge or you're the boss, you just think, oh, well, I'm the boss.
Right.
But that's not the same as leading a group of people. And being a leader is a skill, right? And I'll harken it back to radio, and then you can talk about it in automotive. But in radio, the person who became in charge of the radio station was the salesperson who did the best.
Yes.
So if you sold radio and you were the number one salesperson and the GM job became open, you were the general manager.
Right.
Does it mean you have the skills to be the general manager just because you were the best salesperson? No, it doesn't mean it, because you don't have any of the training that goes into being a good leader.
You are so right. And I think we see this in automotive. Like, you see this all the time. The people don't get hired on for their people skills. They get hired on because they've been good, like you said, in sales, or they get hired on because they were the best F&I manager. The things that make you a good F&I manager are probably not the same things that are going to make you a good manager or leader. I guess we should say leader, because leader is very different than a manager.
Yeah, nope, totally agree. And it is. It's a different skill set that sometimes is not taught. Like, where do you learn that? Like, where does somebody who's promoted to a sales manager or a general manager, if they haven't been a leader before, where do they pick up those skills?
I think on the job, right? Which is why it's so scary when you have like middle management that has no idea what they're doing. And like, even me, I have my agency as well, my PR agency, in addition to the podcast. And a couple of years ago, I think 2008, last time we had a really scary time in the automotive industry, I had 5 people working for me. and I had to lay them all off and it sucked. And I was like, I never want to do this again. And I just realized that like, I'm not a great manager. I'm a good leader. I don't like managing people. So I really do think it's two very, very different things.
Let's talk about some of the some lessons for ramping up leadership, and I'll start with a quick story about how horribly I was a leader the first time that I was a leader. I was young and I got promoted to a job, promotions and marketing director at a radio station where my employees were all older than me, right? And it was some full-time employees, some part-time employees, and then a bunch of interns. And I thought if I tell them to do something, they just do it.
They would just magically do it.
And if they don't do it, then I'm just mean. Or not mean, but just not like friendly about it. And as it turns out, I had no leadership skills, and nobody liked working for me at the time. And I was like 18 years old, and everyone was older, and I had no business having this job. But that was my first lesson. So, what are some lessons for ramping up leadership?
Well, I think the first one for me has always been passion. Like I'm big on this across the board. This isn't just leadership. I think if you don't have passion for something, then it's going to be really difficult to fake it, And so I think passion, and I think leaders really figure out what they're passionate about and then plug into it. So for instance, if you're really passionate about connection, like I am, then you're going to connect the people coming up the ranks behind you with the people they need to know to move forward. If you're really passionate about, if you're really analytical and you're really good at like operations and getting things done, then you're going to rock at that point. But you have to have something that really lights you up. I think that is like the number one key, honestly, for leadership.
Is that the same as like drinking the company Kool-Aid and like marching to the company drum, or is there a difference?
I think there's a huge difference. So like for me, it's drinking the company Kool-Aid, because usually if I've engaged with a client or a company, I'm super stoked about that company. Like I'm very excited to be working for them. But I've also seen it where people try to drink the Kool-Aid in order to be a better leader. And if there's not an authenticity, it just comes across as so fake and wrong.
Yeah.
And so I don't think it's that at all. I think, like I said, kind of your passion could be, maybe you love spreadsheets. Maybe you're someone who loves reports and spreadsheets. And
who doesn't love spreadsheets?
Oh man, you know me. I love my spreadsheets. Actually, I hate spreadsheets. I'm terrible at them. But if that's your skill, like actually, I know a person who is the head, like the CFO at a huge dealership group. And he's very analytical. He loves spreadsheets. And so so he can drive crazy results because he's good about the spreadsheets. But put me in that position and I would die a slow death. Like I cannot stand that kind of analytical.
Yeah.
But they're both good leaders. Like the inspirational one is a good leader and the analytical one is a good leader. It's just plugging into what about the job makes you excited.
Now let's talk about positivity a little bit, right? I'll go into that with a story too. I got a story for everything. I was at a Christmas party for a company I worked for once, and it was an automotive. And the boss started making a speech, and he said, the economy is tough right now, and I'm not sure what's going on, and you should all hold on to your money. Merry Christmas. We were like, what just happened? Like, what just happened? Let me go to the bar and get another drink. Right. He was a good leader overall, but like in this situation, we were like, that was the most not good speech. So how important is it to project the positivity to your people as a leader?
Okay, well, first of all, then in that situation, you go to the bar and drink them dry because that is your Christmas gift for that year.
I did.
But now, unlike finding your leadership style or drinking the company Kool-Aid, I actually think positivity is huge for leadership. And I think it does have to be there. Because what happens is if you have someone who's not positive about the job, about the people, about your industry, that comes through and that kind of wiggles its way through the team dynamic. And then you really have a team problem. It's not a leadership problem. So, if you have a leader, I've actually talked to a couple of people who have had a leader who kind of badmouth the company and what's happening behind the scenes with employees.
Right.
You got to get rid of that immediately. So I think positivity is the ability to kind of rise above and be positive, even especially when people are being negative about things, I think is like a huge trait.
Yeah, I think too that it's easy to be, to think, well, I know I have information that they don't have because of my position in the company, and I reserve the right to be a little bit negative and they'll understand because, my mood or however I act is rooted in the fact that I have more information. But the people who work for you don't need to know that.
No, I totally agree. Like you do not need to, this is really funny. So I started in 99, right? In automotive. Okay. And I started for a software company. I'm not going to say who, but we went through so many layoffs. This was in 2000. So I've been through like 3 bubbles, like 3 hard times in automotive. So this is going way back to 2000 when the bubble burst, and we had an HR leader, and the joke around the office was like, she would wear black or gray on the days that she needed to do layoffs. And like became this huge joke, like, oh my God, so-and-so's wearing gray today. We're all going down. So I think it's absolutely right. Like your team does not need to know everything that's going on behind the scenes. They need to know that you're looking out for them the best you can and that you're going to get through it together, whatever it is,
What are some other tips that, for leadership in 2021?
I think, we hit on positivity. I mean, I think also just emotional intelligence. Like the other day, my husband was like, oh my God, emotional intelligence is like your word for 2021. And I was like, I know, but I think an emotional intelligence to me means knowing your team members well enough to know what each of them needs to be successful. So like, it's not necessarily your style. It's like, how can you work with each of these individuals to make them successful? And so I think emotional intelligence and also the way of giving bad news, right? Exactly what we're talking about. Like when I started out, I was so bad about any kind of criticism or negative feedback. And I thought like you did, that it would mean I was like mean or not nice. And the truth is there is an art to giving. I think it's be direct, be kind, and be firm about it. And so I think those are all just things you learn as you go along, though. That I don't think anyone comes to their position unless they're in an executive role that's been hired for that. But you don't necessarily come to your position knowing all of this stuff.
I think a lot of that stuff can get learned too. Like I learned a lot of like my leadership style or managerial style through what not to do from managers or bosses that I had over the years. Where I'm like, wow, like I had this one guy who I worked for in radio, and he, probably we consider him my radio mentor, right? I learned not just radio mentor, like professional, learned a lot about accountability and about getting the job done and the importance of, how to treat your employees. But he also was the kind of manager who would be like, okay, 3:00 on Friday, here's A, B, and C that I haven't gotten done yet. Can you take care of those? I got to go.
Oh, no.
And it used to drive me nuts because I was this young kid who made no money in radio, and I'd be at the radio station until 9:00 at night, back on Saturday. And I was like, I am never going to do that to my people later on in in my career. And you pick up those kind of things from people, whether it's leaders you respect or leaders that maybe you're like, I'm not going to do that.
Oh my gosh. And this is like actually a hot point of mine. This whole like people getting through the end of their work day, either on Friday or over the weekends. And so like they're done, it's off of their list. And all of a sudden their employees have like 5 or 6 things on theirs. And I've talked to people that are like, well, if I'm working over the weekend, I don't expect people to respond. It's like, yeah, but they're still getting those emails from you. They're still getting those things from you that they're feeling like they need to return. So just like have some restraint and wait till Monday for some of that stuff. Yeah. I mean, I think especially with everyone working from home, all of a sudden, like we're supposed to be available 24/7. I don't buy it. I don't like that at all.
Yeah. I mean, it's easy as a leader to think, okay, well, I'm just going to send this email or this Slack or whatever to get it off my mind. Yeah. But if it's sending someone stressful vibes on a Saturday morning before the weekend, then don't do it. Just write it down, come up with a system to write it down and deliver that message on Monday.
Completely. Like I read this article that was so good. It was about this, like, don't take your stress onto your employees. And it said, if you have to, write out the emails, draft them, just save them in drafts and then send them Monday morning. And I was like, that's such a great way to do it. Cause then the person writing the emails has it off of their, mind for the weekend. But then the person on the other end is not getting pummeled with emails on a Sunday.
Yeah. Yep.
So
for
I
sure.
think just little tips like that for leadership, and really what it comes down to, Matt, is thinking about the person at the other end of the communication, right? Mm-hmm. It's really like, how is this affecting the team as a whole, not just myself?
Going back to delivering, criticism, I was, as you were talking about that, I was thinking what I used to do was I would point out a couple of positives before I hit like the negative. So like if I had a person who they're not proofreading anything, or it was always a spell check. I mean, listen, I just want you're super detail oriented. You have a great attitude. Everyone likes working with you, but we got to make sure we take care of the fact that, everything on our website has to be spelled correctly.
You can't spell.
Yeah,
you have to really take the fact that you have a 5th grade education is becoming a problem.
Yeah, but I need you to run all the spelling things by someone else in the office, please. But and then from there, I would always tell them, like in that situation, I told someone a story who had like a problem, and I'm not a great speller, but I was teaching somebody about like having things proofread, and I always use a story how I used to work in radio, and we had a contest where we were giving away tickets to a concert, and I created a homepage slide for the radio station. And at 6 a.m., the slide came on, and they announced it on the air. We were giving away tickets to see Janet Jackson at the Today Show. The program director called me and said, "Hey, when's the Janet Jackson concert?" And I go, "What do you mean?" He's like, "There's an S in Janet Jackson, right?"
Oh, Janet!
It was like on the website, and I was asleep. I didn't answer my phone, so it was like that for like 2 hours on a radio station.
Amazing.
And so that's my lesson. You know what? I never did it again at that radio station. And so, if you tell somebody, you relate to somebody a story, like, listen, this has happened to me in my career. We can fix it. Here's how we make sure to, here's the process we put in place to not have it happen again. And then boom, you delivered the news, but you didn't have to be a jerk. And you're done.
Yeah, I have a great story like that too. It's like my very first job out of school. Okay. I was in marketing for a bank, and we printed something like 10,000 little booklets of the year. I lived in Alaska at the time, and so it was like the tide schedule. It was like the big giveaway for the bank. And the printer, so we get the boxes and we're opening them. We're all excited. And on the back cover ad, I had forgotten the last 4 digits of one of the advertiser's phone numbers.
Oh,
this is a back cover ad for 10,000 copies.
Oh my gosh.
I'm like, amazingly, talk about leadership. Amazingly, I was not fired.
Yeah.
And we just fixed it and reprinted. I mean, it was an extremely expensive oopsie.
Mm-hmm.
But
I'd say so.
About like never doing something again. Like I quadruple check now anything that goes out.
I would joke around with my employee. I'd be like, we'd get the mailer, and I'd be like, "Oh, you spelled the name of the business wrong." Just kidding, you didn't do that.
That is, I mean, seriously, still to this day, that's like my nightmare. It's like, So yeah, I think everybody makes mistakes. I think a great job.
Did you ever see the movie Sing?
Yes.
With Buster Moon and his secretary with the eyeball that comes out. There's $100,000 instead of $10,000.
Exactly.
And then the flyers like blow out into it's like, no. Yeah, that's my nightmare. That's my nightmare.
But you know what? He made it work. Perfect example. Yeah. They made it work.
Yeah, well, it worked pretty good, unless you were the little mouse guy, in which case we don't know what happened to him at the end of the movie.
I always want to be like the saucy pig. That's who I want to be.
Yeah.
The one that's like it's spicy. I love that guy.
I love that. Yeah, that's a great song too.
Yes,
let's talk about a little bit in terms of like holding your employees accountable, right?
Okay, yes.
How do you from a leadership standpoint, like I said, back to my original example, you can't be like, do this. I mean, you can't say do this, but if they don't do it, you need to motivate, but also appreciate and provide. It's like with my kids, some positive reinforcement. Like, what are some tips for? I know we're off book a little bit here, but for leaders to do that.
Yeah, I think this is such a great example because I personally have this problem. I'll tell a little kind of short story and then I'll go into the answer. But
sure.
I tend to be really easygoing, and you seem really easygoing too. And so what ends up happening a lot of times is people kind of take that for advantage after a while, take advantage of that, right? And they assume I'm always going to be easygoing. And then what happens if people are not responding the way I want them to, then I get more and more angry, and then I just like blow up eventually. And they're like, whoa, what happened there? And so I think like that's a great example of a way I can handle it so much better the whole way through. So what I've started doing is giving them kind of one opportunity, like mine with the wrong number. And then if they mess up, it's like, okay, we can fix this. This is not a big deal. However, and maybe not even a mess up, maybe they miss a deadline. However, I am expecting this at this date, at this time. And then if that happens again a second time, then it's really like, let's talk to them about it. So I think for me, I've actually gone the opposite way. I don't know that I go as positive as I used to. I used to be like rah-rah. Now I'm like, okay, I'm going to treat you like the adult you are and give you very clear expectations. And if you don't deliver on those, you get one more chance. And then we really are going to have a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I think it's due to being too easygoing most of my career and realizing like that does not necessarily serve you well unless people respect that you're easygoing and deliver. But I've had it both ways.
Yeah. I used to say, like I would ask, like, can you create a spreadsheet and do an analysis on all the, area dealerships, comparing their reviews and see where we rank, and then we'll keep track of it every month for the next 6 months. But I need it by next Friday for a meeting I'm going to. And so I'm asking, I'm not saying do this right now. I'm saying I'm asking to do it, but I'm telling you I need it done by this date. Like you can do it without being like, I don't want to swear, but you can do it by being nice.
Well, and don't you think too, like the accountability factor is so key. Like if you're saying, I need a report on this every Friday, I've been in this position where like maybe you haven't gotten as much done, and then you're like, oh crap, I have like an accountability meeting coming up. I better like get this done. And so I think just the accountability cues too are so key.
And there's tools for that too. I mean, and those things have changed. Like back to my original boss, radio mentor, he had like a planner, a book, and he would say, okay, Matt, you're going to add all the titles to all the Aerosmith songs in all caps in the system by next Thursday. And here's my planner, and here's a yellow dot, which is all Matt's things. And stick it on the planner and go, next Thursday, I'm going to come and say, Matt, did you fix all the titles of all the Aerosmith
Amazing.
songs?
He sounds like super organized, by the way.
He was super organized.
Yes.
And that's influenced me in my career now, because now like I work in an agency, all agencies use Asana, I think. Everything is done through Asana at my current company, but that's another accountability. I can see here's a task. Here's all the people that are working on getting this task done. Here's the due date that I set, and they don't even work for me. We're all part of it. We're part of a team. They're not my employees, but like the expectation is that so-and-so is going to have this task done on this day because I can't do my task until they do their task.
Totally.
And it holds everyone accountable because we all see what everyone else has to do.
Technology, like there's nowhere to hide anymore. If you don't, exactly like you're saying, if you're in a team and you haven't done your part, technology has created a situation where there's nowhere to hide. Like everyone's aware who has not done their part in the process.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so what are some other lessons for ramping up leadership in 2021? I know we're all over the place, but what else we got?
Let's see. I think we went over positivity, we went over teams. I also just think being willing to do the work that you're assigning and asking to do. And I've always been a big one of that. Like, if you're not willing to do it, why are you signing it out? Now, definitely there's some tasks that we all have gone far enough, right, to where we don't do them anymore. And like for me, it's like reporting, or it's it's all that like Asana. It's like all that entry is so annoying. But it's not that I wouldn't do it if I couldn't. It's just that I've gotten to a point where I hate that stuff.
And you got to prioritize your time too.
That's right. And so I think it's just like, I personally have never asked someone to do something that I wouldn't do myself. Yeah. And I think, I don't know, it's interesting as the new workforce has come in and the next generation, this could like open a can of worms, but I don't know that we're seeing that as much. Like the whole willing to kind of like get in there, dig in and do your time. That might be going away a little bit, like from employees coming in. We'll see. I've seen it both ways.
Mine was always like stuffing mailers. Like we would always buy direct mail at my auto group, but sometimes we would do our own in-house mailers, and we bought like a mailing machine, and I'd be like, okay, you three are gonna like, I'm going to write the letter. I'll do the mail merge. We'll get it going, but you guys are going to like fold it and stuff envelopes and the addresses get printed and I'm not going to help you with it. And I'm not going to help you with it, not because it's beneath me, but because I did this for 5 years and I'm done doing it. I paid my dues and I have other things I got to get done. So
you're right. You're not doing anything that you haven't already, you're not assigning anything you already haven't done. Yeah. You're just like, I hate this.
I really don't like it.
Myself, I don't like it.
I think it's too, there's like a little bit of like paying your dues, like a little bit like, when I used to work at the dealership and we had a radio station do like a live remote, right? Yeah. And it was like, not that warm outside, but it wasn't freezing. And I had the radio station set up outside the front door. And there were like chilly, and they had the tent up, and they were cold, and they're listening, giving away prizes or whatever. And someone was like, "You should let them inside." And I was like, "No, I had to stand outside in the freezing cold for 10 years in radio. No one let me inside. These kids don't know what it's like. They're staying out there."
I totally feel the same way in some regard. Like, I feel like there's so much that's happening right now. I remember my first job out of school, or not out of school. When I was in school, I was working at a movie theater, and my job was like to clean. I did concessions, so one of the jobs was cleaning the butter machine, that fake butter that you pour onto. And I still think about that today. It was so disgusting. Like I'd come home smelling like grease. But you know what? Whatever. Put your dues in.
Did you get sick of popcorn? I feel like if you, you know, when you walk in to a movie theater, someone makes popcorn, you're like, "Oh, it smells so good." But if you're around it all the time, you're like,
"No, it always smelled good." It always
really?
smelled good. It never left. Same with I worked at a pizza joint. I ate pizza every night for 5 months. I still loved pizza. Pizza and popcorn never go bad.
Yeah. My wife and I were talking about that the other day at if it's a wing, you work at a wings place or a coffee house or a pizza place. Right. Oh, it's just Chinese food smells so good. But if you're cooking it every day, no,
I'm telling you, it doesn't go away. Pizza for sure. I can eat pizza.
Interesting. Yeah. What about having to let people go? Whether it's for over the last year, obviously in a lot of situations, not performance based, just the nature of the business based, or in some cases it's performance based. But that's something that you don't really get taught. You just learn. I mean, I remember the first couple times I had to let people go was super. I was probably more nervous than they were. Super uncomfortable about it.
Yes.
Now it's fun. I'm just kidding. It's not fun. I'm just kidding.
I was ready to burst into tears myself. I was probably way less professional than I should have been when I first started that. Yeah. I think the key there is just being direct. I remember when I first began and would have to let people go, I would beat around the bush and it would take so long. And it's that's not fair to anybody. Just, especially if it's almost easier if you're laying off, not because of performance, because then you're just look, we've had a really tough year. I'm so sorry. We tried to do everything we can to make it work. It's just not working. I'm so sorry to let you go. But when it's for performance, I actually had a woman who it was for performance, and she kept arguing with me as I tried to let her go. And it actually got so uncomfortable. I needed to bring someone into the office because she started threatening me. She would not really just take it and go. And it continued. I mean, she did Bureau of Labor. She was my first lesson on the disgruntled employee after they leave.
Yeah, right.
But I think the key there again is just all the things we're talking about. Be firm, but be positive, be firm, and just be kind. And honestly, get it done with as soon as possible, right? No one wants to be in that room, least of all the employees. So just get it done with and get them out.
That happened to me once, being in the room and having an employee challenging you on it. I wasn't the one doing it, but I was the one who was asked to be in the room with the person. Yes. And so it was a BDC person, and I was sitting behind this person. So they knew I was in the room, but I couldn't see their face. Yep. And the person who was doing the firing, the BDC person was challenging, why? My metrics are better than their metrics, and this and that, and And I was like, oh, this is getting real. And it was in the evening, 6 o'clock. It was getting dark out.
Hard. That's so hard. I ended up literally filling out emails for this employee.
Yeah, right.
Emails from clients that were upset and complaining about her, because I was just look, I shouldn't even have to do this, but because you're giving me such a hard time, let me show you exactly why I'm letting you go.
What do you think about this? I learned this from a boss once who said, if you're firing an employee and they don't know deep down in the back of their head why they're getting fired, then you didn't do a good enough job of trying to improve their job performance.
I totally agree. And I had a mentor early on who told me that same thing. He was actually telling it for me, because at the time I wasn't getting let go, but we were having a lot of people get laid off. This is at the first software company I was at. And he said, look, I know you're going to be in management at some point. And he said, here's the deal. If you have an employee come in and they're surprised that they're getting let go, exactly what you're saying, you have not done a great job of preparing them for that. Because by the time you get in to be let go, especially if it's performance-based, that employee should have had numerous opportunities to get it right. And they should be very aware of why you're calling them in.
That person should be thinking oh, I got called down to the boss's office. Uh-oh. They should know something is going on. Totally agree.
Exactly.
But again, that's another thing that you don't learn. It just happens. Is there a school? Where do you pick up those skills?
Wait, let's make one, Matt. If there's not, let's do it together.
Listen, I got hold on, let me check in here. I got, Oh no, I don't have any cash. I was gonna say I got some money. Oh, here we go. I got $50. Here, I'll put $50 in this business idea.
Okay, and I have the brand name. It's called the Fire Alarm. Boom.
Awesome. Write that down. Trademark that.
Here first, folks. The Fire Alarm coming your way.
After this podcast, you check and make sure the firealarm.com URL is available.
Okay,
and
good.
I'll get on the phone with a trademark lawyer and we'll get the ball rolling. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the Carearing podcast. Tell me a little bit about it. What can we expect?
Okay, Carearing, I started about a year ago, and it really was, I have a 13 and a 15-year-old. I'm married with 2 kids, and really this is funny. This happened before the pandemic. So the idea was, how are moms juggling careers and their families at the same time? So the rear part of Carearing is the rearing the kids and the jobs at the same time. And so what's really funny is I started it and I wanted tips and tricks and to talk to these executive women. And really a big piece of it, honestly, this isn't talked about enough. I love my career. I love my job. I love working. And I think a lot of women feel bad saying that. It's kind of weird. Like, I think there's this weird thing about women can't say that. So I wanted to give them a safe place to say that. But then COVID hit. And all of a sudden, like, a lot of these amazing women have a career, are parenting, are the school teachers, are, taking care of the social obligations. I know one mom who's so amazing. She created recess and PE for her kids for the year because they weren't in school. So, I mean, all of a sudden COVID creates all of these different roles for moms. And really the podcast is just a matter of like, how are you juggling it all? And what are the tips and tricks you can give other moms who are trying to make the same thing work?
It's funny. We were like, for kindergarten, homeschool kindergarten last year, they'd send out like, here, we're not having field day this year because of COVID. Right. So here's what you do for field day at home. Get a laundry basket, buy 14 plastic balls, I'm like, we're not doing that. No way. Who has time for that?
That's the same of like, here's the science experiment to do with your children. And there's like 8 different steps. I'm like, are you joking right now? Yeah. Like, let's actually do this.
Yeah, we don't have time for that. We're both working. We got a lot. Like, who am I? I'm not doing field day outside.
But I will say, I don't know if you found this, but I used to feel so guilty about like enjoying work so much and enjoying my family. Like I could never. And if there's one kind of like silver lining of COVID, I've learned that like you cannot do it all. There's no way to do it all. No. And so just do the best you can in all of the areas and you'll get it right. As long as you're trying your best in all areas, you'll get it right.
Yeah, you can't beat yourself up. Some things sometimes the dishwasher is not going to get emptied and the sink's going to be full of dirty dishes and it is what it is. So what are you going to do about it, right?
And I always talk about this, like, this is such a cool example. So my son is 15. Like I said, I'm always worried that like working they'll think it takes precedence over them. And my birthday was this last July. And my son was like, I'd like to interview you on Carearing because I watched you start this podcast and interview all these amazing women. And I think of you as an amazing woman. So can I interview you on your show? And for me, it was so validating because it was like, there are some really positive things that are coming from them watching me have a career that I love.
Yeah, we could do a whole episode on this, but I think it becomes like you feel guilty, like, hey, Dad, can you help me with this? No, I can't, buddy. I'm really busy right now. Like, you don't want your answer to everything to be, no, I can't, buddy. I'm really busy right now. Yes. Because I'm not too busy for you, but like right now at this time, I'm doing what I need to be doing for my job.
Yeah.
But like you said, the flip side to that is maybe you're instilling a work ethic in your children while you're doing that.
And don't you think like, okay, this is going to go way off topic. So this really does need to be another one. But I think the other thing is like, what I'm learning is we are so hyper-focused on our kids right now. Like as parents, you're supposed to be so hyper-focused and like provide for their every need. And I really think we're doing them a huge disservice. Like, again, speaking through COVID, like my kids are now making their own lunch. They're getting themselves, we just put together the other day, like you guys, the dishes and laundry are insane. Like everybody's going to take a day to do dishes and laundry. So I think,
that's my dream.
Right? Amazing. But like, why are we not doing that before? Why were we not? I have teenagers. So I think what it's teaching us is like getting back to your point of always saying, I'm so sorry I'm working. I can't do that right now. I think it's good for them to hear. I don't think that's the worst thing in the world.
Now, let me ask you this. It's a -11 outside wind chill right now. Can I have my 6-year-old take out the garbage and the recycling? Or is that too much?
No, that's an absolute yes.
I mean, gloves and a hat on, he's fine.
Right.
Right? Well, this has been great stuff. Great information of value, I believe, for dealers and not even dealers, just people in those positions alike. Before we wrap up, let's talk about Clubhouse real quick because I succumbed to the peer pressure of Clubhouse, and I was talking to Bob Lanham this morning about Clubhouse, and so I have a Galaxy Note. Like I like the little pen at the bottom. The pens.
Yes. Oh, but can you get in or no though with a Galaxy?
So you can't. So I had to borrow an iPhone from my mom.
From your mom.
I'm an adult. I had to borrow a iPhone from my mom. Mom, can I borrow a phone so I can get on Clubhouse? She's like, what's Clubhouse? I'm like, don't worry about it. So I borrow the phone because I've never had an iPhone either. So I'm like, how do you work? I'm like, how do you work this thing? Like, I've no idea how to work it. Yeah. Why are there no buttons? Right. Where's the back button? So I get on the Clubhouse and I figure out like how to get on one, and then I see there's one at 1:15 and I sign up for it and I get a little push notification and I join it. And it's a bunch of dealers and they're talking about just general automotive industry stuff. And there's some people in there that I know. I recognize their names from just being, in our space. It's not a huge group of us. Some of them I don't know, or some of them I know I've always wanted to talk to this person. Yes. So I'm listening to them talk, and I'm like, oh, well, I got something to say. I always have something to say. So I raise my hand, and I had an hour. I had an hour and a half, and then I had to go. And so, like at the 45-minute mark, they mentioned me, like, oh, we see Matt's got his hand up. He's gonna, we're gonna bring him up to the stage, and then he can talk whenever it's his turn. So I'm like, ooh, I'm excited. And then I'm getting nervous. I'm like, oh my God, I'm nervous.
Yeah, it's kind of like being called in front of class, right? Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, first I was excited, then I was nervous. And then I had to wait like another 45 minutes, and then I had to go. But I really wanted to say my bit. Yeah. And so whatever, I finally got to talk, said my bit, and then like when you make your, like for me, when I said my bit, and then I was done, like, here's the next person. There's no like feedback or like, so you're like, did people think that I just made no sense, or did people not agree with me, or is that dumb? So I stayed on to see if there's any like callback, like, oh, I agree with what Matt said. Yeah. And there was some of that, which is good validation. Yeah. Because at first I was like, nobody commented on what I said. Like, did I just make a fool of myself?
Exactly. I think the Clubhouse situation is so crazy right now. Like everyone trying to get the invites and stuff. I mean, the marketing rollout was brilliant.
Genius.
Brilliant. Like I was watching that like, oh my gosh, this is the best thing I've ever seen.
Yeah. But they built out like exclusivity.
But from a productivity perspective, like how are all these people on all day talking? I don't understand what's happening.
I know. Somebody was like, oh, I was on Clubhouse all night last night. I'm like, I like to hang out with my wife at night. So
I know.
I'm going to sit on Clubhouse till 11 o'clock.
Right.
Yeah. Like who has all that free time? Now, I have not been, I was just saying this to Bob Lanham this morning. I have not been on since the first day because I've had a busy week. So I haven't had time to be like, let me just hop on this other phone and hang out. Like, some people say, oh, you just put it on and listen. And if there's something you want to weigh in on, you weigh in on it. I'm like, but that's like being on a conference call all day. Like I'm trying to concentrate. So I don't know. I don't know if it's going to stick around, or have you done a bunch of them, or like what?
No, I'm just barely getting started. And I literally will pop into a room for like 5 minutes and then pop back out. And I don't know what I'm doing yet, but I do think it's going to be very interesting to watch, because I think for even like podcasters, maybe like us, or I think like people like Bob, Lanham, Joe Turra is doing some really interesting things right now on Clubhouse, like with the whole Vroom debacle and all of that stuff. And so I don't know, like it's going to be really interesting to see if it's a new way to kind of get your voice heard on a new medium and how strong it will be. I mean, I think there's definitely a little bit of like, oh, we're all on and it's new and we've got the newest thing, now will that carry through? I don't know.
The other criticism could be too, is like, when you boil down to it, there's like 50 of, us. There's like 50 to 100 like automotive people who are willing to talk about what's going on. There's a finite amount of topics. So how long before it's just all of us in a room talking about the same stuff over and over again? I had a
friend who said the same thing. I was like, she's an automotive. And I was like, have you gone into Clubhouse? What do you think? She's like, it's all of us on LinkedIn and Twitter and everywhere else speaking on Clubhouse. Like it's the same 50 people.
Yeah. I had a friend who's outside of automotive, and she, I guess if somebody jumps in a room, you see that they're in that room, I guess. So she joined the room that I was in. And she said, oh, they said your name, you're going to talk soon or whatever. And so then she texted me later. She's like, oh, I had to bail before you talked. She's like, but man, I don't know how you do it. You guys are all so boring. And I was like, well, like if you're in automotive, the topic was an interesting topic, but like she works in the like ski and snow industry. So I'm like, of course you thought we were all boring. I'm sure I'd be on your call and be like, what are they talking about? Like,
exactly. Be like, this is so lame. Actually, maybe not ski and snowboarding, but
yeah. It's not like you're going to go on and hop around and get into a bunch of clubs that are like out. Like, what am I going to like? What am I do? Go on there and listen to a bunch of people talk about a subject that is, or an industry that I don't know anything about, or I'm not interested in.
You know what I will say about that? That's so cool. And I haven't done a lot of looking around in terms of this, but I will say, like, I read, I love books. So I've actually been able to be a part of rooms where authors are speaking. And it's kind of this whole like, oh my gosh, like I'm so close to Glennon Doyle right now, or, whoever it is, like that aspect is super cool. That like, yeah, someone that you might not otherwise have had access to, you're suddenly listening to on the phone. They're talking in the room you're in. So that aspect I think is really neat.
Yeah, I gotta think about that because I didn't really even like bother to search around. Like I was like, all right, they give out my suggestions. Here's 10 people I know. I'll just go there. But it's almost like LinkedIn. How do you get out of your,
sphere,
like your connections how do you grow your sphere?
Yeah.
Because it's the same people.
Totally. You know what else has been so interesting about Clubhouse? I think this is fascinating. Like you can see who's invited who. So what I like doing is like going back on the invites to like I'll go to like a Glennon Doyle and be like, who does Glennon, like, what's Glennon's sphere of influence? Like who invited her, that invited her, that invited him, that invited her, so like, I think that's like fascinating.
Well, let's circle back as you spend more time on it too. And I do a couple more, maybe our opinions, or maybe it'll just go away at some, maybe we'll just all realize like, well, it's gone. But,
and don't you think like social media fatigue is real? I'm like, how many more platforms can we literally like,
oh my gosh, tell me about it. Yeah, exactly. There's too many things I have to, it's like, oh, I got an episode coming out. Let me make sure I post it on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn stories. It's like, how much do I need? There's too much.
I know. Too
much. It's like, it's even like internal communication. You got the email and then you got texting and then you've got Slack and then you've got, then it's like, even like video chat, you can Google Meet, you can Slack video chat, you can FaceTime, I'm like, someone's like, oh, I sent you that. Where'd you send it? I think I sent it to your email. No, it's not my email. Oh, I think I Slacked it to you. It's like, you can't.
And don't you think like, the funny thing is someone should do, this may have already been done, but like the personality, like the Microsoft Meet is different than like the Zoom, like the way what people use kind of like coincides with how they do business. It's really fascinating.
Interesting.
Yeah. Like a Microsoft team I've noticed is more corporate, like a Zoom is more casual. So it's like interesting. Slack is going to be like your newer high tech San Francisco company. So it's like,
now that I think about it, all the Microsoft Teams people have been like Experian uses Microsoft Teams.
Like the big corporate
data house. Like they're very concerned with security and like interesting.
So there's different personalities based on like the different meeting software they're using.
I think agencies are all Slack because we're supposed to be all hip and cool, like we're an advertising agency. Like, we have wooden ceilings and red beams and
My husband just started a job the other day in software and he was like, so wait, Slack is basically just text messaging, right? I'm like, yeah, pretty much. Like it's just a different way of doing threads is exactly what it is.
It's pretty much text messaging. Yeah, exactly. Well, listen, Laurie, this has been great. This has been fun because you talk fast, just like me, which is good because sometimes it's me talking fast and someone's staring at me like, dude, shut up. Why do you talk so fast?
I have a friend that told me, of course you like podcasting because you love the sound of your own voice the other day. So, and he is correct.
He's what?
He is correct.
That's funny. I use that line a lot. Like if I'm talking to clients who are in the South or even people in my company's in the South. Like, I'm sorry I talk fast, but I'm from Connecticut and that's the way it is. And the family I grew up in, if you didn't talk fast, you couldn't get a word in edgewise. So
completely. I was one of 5 kids. So I think there's something.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
I think there's something to that.
Laurie Halter, owner of Charisma, host of Carearing podcast and contributor at Dealer Marketing Magazine, as I am as well. And that's how we got hooked up. And this was a fun time. We'll talk again soon.
Thanks so much for having me on.
All right. Thanks, Laurie. Thanks very much. There you go. Another episode of Mostly Automotive Marketing with Matt Wilson. People have been telling me that when you have a podcast or YouTube or whatever, that you're supposed to promote all your channels. And they say things like, hey, make sure you smash the subscribe button. And I'm not saying that because that sounds ridiculous, but do make sure you like and follow on Facebook, subscribe on YouTube, connect on Twitter, LinkedIn, wherever you connect. I don't know. There's too many outlets. Just search me. You'll find me. Thanks for listening.
Mostly Automotive Marketing with Matt Wilson is brought to you by... Wait, this guy has sponsors? Oh, never mind. This sheet of paper's blank. No sponsors. That makes more sense. For updates, info, future episodes, and more, follow on Twitter, subscribe on YouTube, like on Facebook, and connect on Frackle. You guys made that last one up. That's not even a thing, Frackle. Come on.